S-O-R-E-K or S-O-R-E-Q, depending how you want to spell it. Sorek. This one is the Gila, and then go green, and you'll keep. These will be on the test. Right? Sorek. Across the valley, as we look, is a place called Zorah. Zorah. Z-O-R-A-H. Does it ring the proverbial bell with any of you? Someone was born in Zorah. Samson. Right. Not Goliath, but Samson. Pretty much right across, right out that way. Zorah. So, you are looking at Samson's playground. This is where he would have grown up. He would have played cops and robbers. Killed the Philistines here, or whatever, right? Samson, okay, so the Zorah Valley goes that way, west, right? And you can just see it. Down at the end is a city called, or a town called Timnah. Samson played spin the bottle with a lady in Timnah. He should have played cops and robbers up here at home. He went down there and married a woman. Parents wished he had married an Israelite. He said, no, this is the woman for me. And scriptures tells us that they did not know that this was God's plan. Samson grew up to be, or he was born to be, by a miraculous birth, Israel's deliverer. He had everything, he was given everything he needed. If he obeyed, he could have delivered his people. He was a Nazirite by vow. Hair was not to be cut. It was only once, I guess. He was not to drink any wine. He was not supposed to touch any dead bodies. So this is the Sorek Valley. I'm not going to say a whole lot about it other than that Samson grew up right here. Beit Shemesh, House of the Sun, pre-Israelite. I think I mentioned earlier this morning that could have been an Egyptian or a Philistine or a Phoenician or maybe just a broad Canaanite city with a worship center where they worshipped the sun here. It was an industrial area during the United Kingdom. Saul, David, and Solomon. There were lots of olive trees in the area. It was an olive production center. It obviously was a place where wheat could grow. And you might remember, some of you will, right? But when after Samson got married, he gave a riddle to his wedding party, and his wife finally worked the secret of the riddle out, and tried to find the answer. So he had to give 30 sets of clothes to his men. So he went, I think it was the gas, yeah, and he still put in there, took their clothes to his wedding party, and then he came back home, and later he went back down there to meet his bride, and his father-in-law said, well, I didn't think you loved your wife anymore, so I gave her to one of your best men. That got Samson a little bit upset, so he took foxes, remember? Tied their tails together, somehow put a torch in between their tails and let them run through the wheat fields. So now, being the Bible scholars you are in the land of the text, when is wheat harvest? Right now. Pentecost. We can put, right? It's the first fruits of the wheat harvest. Pentecost comes 40 days after Easter. No. Pentecost is 50 days after Easter. 40 days. Well, yeah. So the first fruits of the harvest, of the wheat harvest. So it's right about this time. 40 days was the ascension. And so, Sorek Valley, Samson. But there's another part of the story of this valley. I mean, Samson is a story in itself, and we could talk for a long time, and your pastors have probably talked about it. You could challenge them to talk more about it if you want to know. I'm not going to give you that whole story about his vengeance and anything like that. Samson could have done it all, but he did not obey strictly. And trouble. Now, another interesting fact about these 5 valleys, which you should keep in your mind, is that the Philistines were inhabiting the western end of these valleys. Pretty much all 5 of them, we could say. The Israelites, of course, were on the eastern end and on up into the hill country and into the mountains of Judea. So what do you think happened in these valleys?
Fighting.
A lot of battle, conflict. Philistines trying to control what the Israelis should have overtaken. And in these valleys, those conflict. And Samson, if nothing else, is a visual image of that conflict. I mean, God had, again, equipped him to overrun the Philistines. He didn't, so the Philistines kept coming in. Let's see. Let's see where the... Oh, okay. I think it's in 1 Samuel 13. Let me just read that quick a minute. 2 minutes maybe. Notice I didn't say, let me just read that a second, because it's not going to take us really more than a second. So 1 Samuel 13, if you've taken notes, verses 16 to 22. You don't have to take notes, but that's where it's coming from. Saul and his son Jonathan, Iron Age, 1000 BC, and the men with them were staying at Gibeah in Benjamin, while the Philistines camped at Michmash. Raiding parties went out from the Philistine camp in 3 detachments. One turned toward Ophrah in the vicinity of Shual, another toward Beth Horon, and the third toward the borderland overlooking the valley of Zeboim, facing the wilderness. Are you noticing, at least what I've been reading to you today, that geography matters to the Bible? There are a lot of place names given. And a lot of us, over our year, we say, oh, okay, Beth Horon, Zeboim, okay. What's next? Hey, folks, the Bible matters. This is the land of God's text. He's telling us these places so we can figure that out. All right, that's just a little aside. Now, verse 19. Not a blacksmith could be found in the whole land of Israel, because the Philistines have said, otherwise the Hebrews will make swords or spears. So all Israel had to go down to the Philistines to have their plow points, mattocks, axes, and shickles sharpened. Philistia was winning the battle, weren't they? Ouch. All nations will be blessed through you, people of God, except when Israel said, I think we'll just do our own thing, and now the Philistines had the upper hand. Can you imagine? Your enemies have iron, and you have the jawbone of an ass. Which worked for Samson.
Yeah.
Once. Right? But again, it's a conflict. It's a culture war in these valleys. Not just physical battle, but it's a culture war. Will the God of Israel be victorious? Or will Dagon, the god of the Philistines, be victorious? Will Hollywood win the battle? Or will Jesus Christ? Well, we have to ask, right? Well, food for thought there. We won't go any further. Now, back to 1 Samuel. We're going to leave Samson in the wheat field for just a minute, for a while, and move on. Remember Eli? Oh, yeah, the fox coming? once again came to the, made the right phone calls. I wasn't going to say anything, but he brought it up. Once we were standing there talking about Samson tying the fox's tails together and put a fire in it, and a fox ran up the field.
Oh, wow.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Almost as good as a hovering dove. Not quite. You may remember Eli from the time of Samuel. Eli was the old priest, and his sons were terrible, godless men who were acting as priests. Another battle in the Ajalon, actually a little bit north of the Ajalon Valley. The Israelites went out to fight against the Philistines. The Israelites camped at Ebenezer, the Philistines at Aphek. The Philistines didn't win one day, or they beat them up a little bit, but it wasn't a disaster. So the Israelites said, let us bring the Ark of the Lord's covenant from Shiloh so that he may go out with us and save us from the hand of our enemies. Sounds like, was that good? What were they doing, Roy? Can you put that into words? Trying to do their own thing. What were they doing with the presence of the Lord? Making a magic act out of it, right? Yep. We bring this ark, and the Philistines will flee like the sun is standing still. Well, that's not what happened. The battle went bad. Eli's two sons were killed. The ark was taken. It was brought down. So let's see. The ark of God was captured. Eli's two sons, Hophni and Phinehas, died. And somebody ran up to tell Eli. He fell off his chair, broke his neck, and died. Oh, really? I mean, he was old and he was heavy, high on a three-legged stool, and he was so distraught. He said, his chair by the side of the road watching. Eli, who was 98 years old and whose eyes had failed, he could not see. Eli, when he mentioned the Ark of God, Eli fell backward off his chair by the side of the gate. His neck was broken and he died. For he was an old man and he was heavy. He had led Israel 40 years. His daughter-in-law had a baby, one of the wives of one of his sons, one of those priests. Here comes the king, I think. That's the modern day Samson of power. It's a little bit more a little trickier for Salah to get the train to work together, but he does it year after year. So there's the modern day. So the daughter-in-law of Eli had a baby. She was so distraught because her husband had died and the Ark of God was taken that she named her son Ichabod, which means the glory has departed from Israel. So the Ark went down. I'm going to paraphrase. The Philistines captured the Ark. They took it from Ebenezer to Ashdod, one of the 5 Philistine cities. And again, if you've read this recently, you know the story. Dad said, well, they put it up in their temple. They put the Ark of the Covenant of God next to their statue of Dagon. I don't think they were expecting communication. They were expecting Dagon to show himself as victorious over the God of the Israelites. They go in to see how that worked out the next morning, and Dagon was lying flat on his face in front of the Ark of the Lord. So they put Dagon back up on his pedestal. Oh, okay. So the next morning they go down to see how things went that night, and not only was Dagon flat on his belly, but his head had broken off and his hands had broken off. And then worse things started happening to the people of Ashdod. They started getting what the Bible calls tumors, whatever that might mean. But also rats started to work in their fields and kind of devastate their fields. So we read that the people of Ashdod don't like that. Have the Ark of the God of Israel move to Gath. Get it out of our city. So they moved the Ark of God to Gath. They moved it after that. The Lord's hand was against that city, throwing it into a great panic. He afflicted the people of the city, both young and old, with an outbreak of tumors. So they sent the Ark of God to Ekron. I mean, this is not working out so good for the city. There are 5 cities of the Philistines. 2 of them so far have been tumorized. So then they sent it up to Ekron. As the Ark of the God was entering Ekron, the people cried out, "They brought the Ark of the God of Israel around to us to kill us and our people." So they called together. This is the first, one of the wisest things they did. They called together all their rulers of the 5 cities, and they said, "What should we do?" So they decided, send it back. Get rid of it. There's something about it we don't know, and obviously they weren't ready to submit themselves to the God of Israel, but they at least knew that they had done something wrong. I think we'll give them credit for that. They knew they had done something to anger the God of the Israelites, and he was still active. So they send the ark. They decide that they would put it on a cart, a new cart, take 2 cows that had just recently calved, put them together on a yoke. Neither of these cows had ever been yoked before, so they were covering their bases. They said, if those cows head up towards, believe it or not, Beit Shemesh, we've done the right thing. So they watch. Again, I'm doing a whole lot of paraphrasing here. They made models of the tumors and of the rats out of gold and put them on that cart. Yeah. And again, they were trying to make a guilt offering, right? They were trying to do something within the character that. And they said, if the cows go up towards Beit Shemesh, we've done the right thing. So they did. They took 2 such cows, hitched to the cart, penned up their calves. They placed the Ark of the Lord on the cart. Fortunately, God did not destroy them, the people who touched it, right? Because he did that later. They placed the Ark of the Lord on the cart, along with the chest containing the gold rats and the models of the tumors. Then the cows went straight up toward Beit Shemesh, keeping on the road, lowing all the way. They did not turn to the right or the left. The rulers of the Philistines followed them as far as the borders of Beit Shemesh. Here comes the ark, folks. Right up this valley. Maybe right up where the train tracks go. You can see it's making its way down over there. Maybe that's the road of choice. Who knows? But it came, the ark of the Lord, pulled by 2 cows on a new ark with a guilt offering from the Philistines, something the Israelites hadn't even thought of maybe doing, comes up here to this city. Now we're only seeing a tiny part. This tell goes up and over. This was a big place, and here it comes. And now listen, gives you a time frame. You're going to know this all now. Next time you read some of it, you're going to, that's okay. Now the people of Beit Shemesh were harvesting their wheat in the valley. So, when does this story take place?
February.
No,
Oh,
May.
no.
May.
Oh, right now.
Right now. Right now. And when they looked up and saw the ark, they rejoiced at the sight. The cart came to the field of Joshua of Beit Shemesh, not the Joshua of the taken over. It stopped beside a large rock. One of the, well, yeah, we got our choices there. You're learning that Israel is a bit of a rocky ground, right? It stopped by a large rock. The people chopped up the wood of the cart, sacrificed the cows as a burnt offering to the Lord. The Levites, this was a Levitical city. You say, what's that mean? Well, when the Israelites conquered and took over the land of Israel, the Levites, being the priestly group, were not given an inheritance of land. But Moses designated, I think it was 30 cities across the land where the Levites could live, and then they would send their priests up to Jerusalem on a regular basis. Think of the father of John the Baptist. Went to Jerusalem because it was his time and the chart. So there were Levites here who, well, I guess we'll say they should have, or maybe they knew what to do. So they took down the Ark of the Lord, together with the chest containing the gold objects, placed them on that large rock. On that day, the people of Beit Shemesh offered burnt offerings, made sacrifices to the Lord. The 5 rulers of the Philistines saw all this, and then returned that same day to Ekron. Interesting. Well, some of the residents of Beit Shemesh, which apparently the Levites didn't tell them not to do. God struck down some of the inhabitants of Beit Shemesh, putting 70 of them to death because they looked into the ark of God. The people mourned because of the heavy blow. Who can stand in the presence of the Lord, this holy God? Lord, this holy God. To whom will the ark go up from here? So they sent it up to Kiriath Jearim, and it stayed there in Abinadab's house until for 20 years. Until David brought it. First he tried to bring it, he wanted to bring it to Jerusalem, and Uzzah touched it because the oxen stumbled. Uzzah died. And David said, I don't want this in Jerusalem. He pulled a Philistine. I don't want this. This is, so it stayed for a while till later when he did bring it up properly, and there was dancing in the streets. So, two stories about Beit Shemesh, really. Samson, living just across the valley. I mean, he's Laura. It's not Beit Shemesh, but it's right here. The valley is what Samson worked out of. Could have done a marvelous thing, but Beit Shemesh receiving the ark of the Lord, our God, back after the Philistines had captured it because of the stupidity of Eli and Eli's sons, taking it into a battle thinking it would work like a IUD or something, I don't know. Right? But it obviously didn't work for that. And the Philistines, we can give them a little credit. They said, there's something here that we don't know about. Let's get rid of it. Send it back. It's not working for us. Their God was destroyed on the ground in their temple. Right? And the ark of God came back up here, eventually ending up in Jerusalem. So this is a geographical spot. Think about it. Remember, take pictures of. If you want, that's what I was walking down to see. It's not a nice path. There's a lot of stickers. If you get way out to where those kind of goldenrod flower, I don't know, whatever, if you get out there and you look over the edge, you'll see a Bedouin farmer with a big tent and his sheep in the stream.